Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Supatease video. And in today's video, we are going to be covering all of the specializations in the War Within and how powerful am I expecting them to be in World PvP situations. World PvP in Dragonflight was absolutely phenomenal. I had the best time probably of any expansion leveling with World PvP or just doing world content in the end game. And in the War Within, they're expanding on this World PvP system even further. So I've got really high expectations for it. And I know there's a lot of players that really want to focus on World PvP. There's going to be a seasonal B mount that you're going to be able to get now, along with all of the typical rewards that you would expect. And I haven't seen any of the World PvP quests. I don't know what their layout's going to be like. I'm really excited to explore that when it releases. If you'd like to follow that journey along live with me, my stream is linked in the description down below. But let's get started. So the first couple things to consider with a class in World PvP, you need to look at survivability, mobility, and stealth. I think that these are generally like the three combinations of what is going to make a really powerful specialization. Now, Affliction Warlock, you don't have stealth, can be kind of rough in that regard, but with the current tuning in the beta for the War Within, you do a remarkable amount of damage and you have really decent survivability. I think that Affliction can probably take on multiple enemies at the same time, which is something to also consider, assuming that you're starting the fight with full cooldowns. And you can do cheeky mobility with things like Gateway up on Z-axis and put your portal in locations where melee DPS might not be able to get to you. So it has ways to be really cheeky in World PvP, and I actually leveled as Affliction in Dragonflight and noticed those moments getting my port up in a tree for it and then picking a fight and then just porting back up into it. So I actually think Affliction is very good. I'm going to be putting it up onto the A tier for this. I think it's got good 1v1, it's got good survivability, doesn't have stealth, which is probably the only thing that's somewhat holding it back from being into the S tier, but everything else about it right now in the beta looks really good. Arcane, this is a tough one. I feel like Arcane is kind of a rock, paper, scissors spec. So if you're running into any melee DPS, which are typically more popular in density in terms of player base, you're going to have a pretty good time. But if you run into Warlocks, you're going to start in Ellie Shamans and these kind of self-sustained classes is going to be a bit rougher. And they have been nerfing your personal survivability a lot in recent patches. And I think they're looking to nerf even more classes, potentially even mage even further. Although you probably have the best survivability of any mage spec. So definitely survivability is high. You have really good mobility. You have great 1v1 with things like alter time to reset your health bar. You have good execute power, good burst damage. You can sneak up on somebody with invisibility, which is really good. I think it's just mostly like this rock, paper, scissors situation where you might have some difficult matchups, but I definitely think it has a lot of potential. So I'm going to be putting it up onto the A tier. Now, Arms Warrior, you've got a bit of more healing now in this patch with introductions of a new second wind system. And I was expecting it to not be that good in World PvP and Dragonflight, but I ended up getting a lot of funny montages and a lot of good moments actually with it. So it wasn't as terrible as I expected. Now, you don't have stealth, which is definitely going to be a downside. It can be difficult to escape from certain situations as a result of that. It's very all in. But having Blade Storm and a ton of damage cooldowns, you can almost immediately run somebody down while being completely immune. And the self-sustain is definitely still decent. So for me, I'm going to be putting Arms Warrior on the B tier. I think that it's not like a completely terrible pick. You could definitely make it work. Assassination Rogue, I think basically almost any rogue specialization is going to be an auto S tier because you have decent survivability. Your damage output right now in Assassination is very high, so you can just KO somebody, get out of a fight, re-engage on somebody else, and completely crush them. Multiple escape tools in order to navigate around. High burst, decent survivability. I'd say survivability is maybe a little bit more lacking on Assassination than something like Subtlety, but the scary damage from it is much higher. Which is, I think, the trade-off for me putting it up a little bit higher. But it's the classic World PvP spec, right? This is, in any expansion, it has been good. And I think with the current tuning in the War Within, that there's no doubt that it's going to remain to be good. Balanced Druid, you've got stealth. Survivability is very low, though. Your survivability is like next to zero. You have really good mobility and stealth, and you have decent burst damage. So if you catch some people up by surprise, and being ranged is obviously a bit of an edge in this regard, because in World PvP skirmishes, random people coming in from all different sides, wherever they start piling up on each other, you don't really want to be near that. So being ranged can be nice, or again, being a rogue, be able to cloak and vanish and get away from that type of piling up. So Balanced Druid for me, where am I going to be putting this one? I think it's probably B tier. I think it's just because its survivability is so low. Frenzied Regen is basically doing next to no healing. It can be very difficult to actually get away from certain classes that are good right now. And your 1v1 is just not that good. I think if you're like phenomenal player, it could be decent. But it's not gonna. I don't think it's gonna be like as it was in like Miss Pandaria when you had Cenarian Ward and you could become like a second healer with Heart of the Wild. It's not at all like that. And also, you have stealth, but you have no way to like actively re-engage it if you're dotted. Like you could shadow meld, but I think it's probably going to feel pretty mid. BM Hunter, you've been getting nerf. So I find it hard to believe that you're good in anything related to PvP at the moment. Now, obviously, having pet classes and being really high mobility is going to be nice. You got camouflage. You can maybe sneak up on somebody. I think right now, though, it's just tuning. I don't see you having the damage to be able to really do too much. I think most hunters have re-rolled, and we haven't seen any counterbalancing for PvP yet to change that. And obviously, if that happens, then we'll be relaying those changes here live on the channel. So make sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out. And I'll be updating these as things go along. But as it stands right now, I don't think you're going to play it. Blood DK, I just played this on my stream yesterday. I was a bad boy. I was a naughty boy. I let the voices in my head win, and I enjoyed it. Okay, I enjoyed it. I don't have any regrets. I think that this spec is probably going to be nasty in World PvP, and it's going to just be unkillable. You're going to be able to run down multiple DPS. Just avoid, if there's a healer, just run away from that situation. But you basically are a bulldozer. You don't need to be afraid of anything. And it actually does a remarkable amount of damage. And I haven't even played it with hero talents, and I was in full greens. So I think Blood DK is probably going to be really good. Honestly, the tank specs in general are all really good World PvP specs. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't be recommending this because I don't want to like level as my warlock or mage or something, and then everybody's a tank running around, because then it's going to be miserable for me. So maybe I'm going to regret doing this, but I'm trying to be as honest about this, about what's powerful, right? Brewmaster, I honestly don't know enough. I've seen it a couple times in Battleground Blitz. It seems more annoying than scary. But actually, that's not true. I saw a one-shot recently. I forgot about the one-shot recently from the rank 1 Brewmaster and Solo Shuffle on the beta. Maybe it actually is scary. Maybe I need to put Brewmaster. Am I about to do this? I'm creating a terrible meta right now. I don't want to do this, but I think it is. Because I don't think that one-shot's going to get nerfed. Nobody plays it. You guys could log on this spec, learn the sneaky one-shot. It had something to do with brew. Some type of brew was hitting for like 1.5 million or something. I can't remember exactly what it was. But you're also unkillable to basically every DPS spec. I'm going to regret doing this. This tier list is a big regret now. I have regrets. I have regrets playing Blood, and it's not for me personally playing. It's for everybody else that's going to be re-rolling it too after this tier list. Demonology Warlock. You have really good damage, really good control. Decent 1v1, I think, with like stun into coil, and you can be really tanky in that regard. So for me, I think Demonology is probably going to be a decent pick. Again, not having stealth, probably the main thing holding it back. Maybe not as good of recovery either as Affliction, but it's pretty close to the same. I think that it'll likely be decent just because 1v1 is so good. Destruction Warlock, very similar deal here. I think all the Affliction Warlock, all the Warlock specs are really good for World PvP. You can blast out damage from range. You have a lot of instant crowd control with Infernal and Coils and Shadow Fury, which enable you to be able to take on multiple enemies. And you also can play Succubus. So if you're really looking for like 1 versus 2 moments in World PvP, seduce one target, go after the other. I think that Destro is likely really good for World PvP. I might even put it ahead of Arcane. Devastation Evoker, insanely high damage right now. Really good survivability. Very tanky at the moment. Really good self-healing. All of those are a great formula for a World PvP spec. Great 1v1 from what I've seen in the duels in Westfall right now so far on the beta. So for me, I'm thinking that this is probably like a really good World PvP spec. Discipline Priest. Oh god, I'm about to do this with the healing specs too. Basically, any healing spec that can do a lot of damage is better than a DPS spec in a 1v1. You're gonna beat the DPS. Now, it might take you a while, and so if you want to do it, and you really want to take a really long time to do it, you can probably do it. I'm gonna put it on B tier right now because I think the amount of time it's gonna take to kill something is gonna be pretty miserable. But yeah, the healing specs that do damage are obviously going to be good in this environment because you're basically invincible and you can do enough damage to kill some classes, not all of them. Some of them have sustainability to where you want to completely avoid them, probably like warlocks, and probably even possibly rogues. Elemental Shaman, really good damage, but terrible 1v1. Absolutely terrible. It is just not good at all in that regard. It's really good in BGs. It's really good when you have a healer. It's really good in Arena. But from the duels I've seen in Westfall, it is not good. You do have decent survivability, though, I think, with self-healing. So I'm going to put you a little bit higher than absolute dog. Just mostly because of the healing. The Stone Bulwark Totem buffs definitely feel good, but the 1v1s that I've seen for Ellie don't look that strong right now currently in the War Within. Enhancement Shaman, you got really good self-healing, and that's about it. I don't think whenever Enhancement Shaman or Frost Decay is good in Mythic Plus, I've seen this in multiple betas now. It gets absolutely destroyed, slaughtered, and we never see it again for the rest of the expansion. I don't know why. Now, if we get some PvP modifier buffs onto Enhancement, obviously it could be a menace. I think the amount of instant healing that it has, considering they're pruning healing away from a lot of other specs, Enhance could likely be in a really good spot. So it really depends on tuning and if they're going to do anything on this next coming, maybe Friday or whatever it is. I don't know. I mean, it's the early access is coming on the 22nd, right? Like that's literally next week. So I don't know when those changes are going to come through. Obviously, the PvP season is going to start, but this is a World PvP. You can do World PvP at any time. So for me, Enhance is probably falling off a bit. I haven't seen it doing like crazy in 1v1s at the moment on the beta. It takes a lot to take out a lot of classes. So for me, it's probably coming down here on C. Feral, on the other hand, really good 1v1. Similar level of sustain. Bear form seems really good for Feral for some reason. I don't know if there's like a hero talent tree combo with it, but I've seen a lot of Feral Druids that go Bear against physical damage, and they start taking 0 damage. So for me, honestly, Feral Druid is probably, I want to say it's S tier. It's similar to Rogue. Great 1v1. Great assassin potential. I'm going to put it up on the S tier. I think the Feral Druid is remarkably good for World PvP right now. Only problem is like your ability to disengage from a bad situation might be worse than Rogue, although it's less cooldown dependent, so maybe there's an equal trade-off there, right? Like if Rogue doesn't have Cloak Vanish, they can't really get away, whereas Feral could just spam Shapeshift and potentially get away from a situation that's bad. Fire Mage is not doing so hot anymore. That wasn't a pun. It got nerfed quite a lot. Its damage is gone. It lit fuse build with living bombs. I would have put it on Omega S tier. Just you kill everything instantly in AoE, and that's been getting nerfed with not much compensation. So I'm expecting that Fire Mage is probably not that great when it comes to World PvP. You still do have tools like Alter Time, but it's just your damage is very low since the most recent tuning. Frost Mage, though, since the most recent tuning, is doing an insane amount of damage. It's probably better than Arcane. I don't know if I want to say that it's S tier, but I kind of want to. I don't know how badly the shield nerf has hit Frost yet, if it's enough. Again, it's similar to Arcane, where like if there's a hunter, you might want to not engage on that, but any melee DPS, you're absolutely going to slaughter them. There's going to be no hope for them, and even probably quite a few ranged DPS. So I'm gonna put it here. It's ahead of Arcane, probably somewhere in and with Affliction. Frost Death Knight damage is a lot lower now since the nerfs. I think Unholy is starting to overtake you in terms of viability in situations that you're going to play this. Also, you kind of depend on stacking enemies up, so not being able to stack enemies up makes it kind of weak. But you are still really tanky, so you do have decent survivability. Death Grip can be really fun in World PvP environments, gripping people to edges. And I actually went Coltiran on my DK, so I can grip somebody to an edge, stun them, and then punch them off a cliff. Yeah, Coltiran is really fun to do that. It's really fun to do that. So where do I want to put this for World PvP, though? I think it's probably going to feel kind of mid. I feel like you don't have much disengage. Maybe you're better than Arms. You're probably the best of this tier on the B, because your survivability, I think, is the highest of all these. Fury Warrior is going to be really good. Fury Warrior is probably going to be disgustingly good. I'm putting it onto S. I think the amount of sustain that it has at the moment, now that it has Blade Storm to be able to immune things in World PvP, so you can stack up and just cleave things and AoE them down, it's going to be absolute slaughter. I don't know what I want to level first, right? Because I kind of want to level something for World PvP because the season doesn't start, right? So I want to actually play something focused on World PvP and just get a bunch of funny moments with that time before the season starts, because that's going to be the best time to get it when everybody's leveling. So honestly, this could be like the most important tier list that we cover, at least for like the first 2 or 3 weeks of the expansion. But Fury Warrior is definitely up there for a contender. Now, Guardian Druid, I remember I made this at the beginning of Dragonflight, and I think everyone re-rolled to it after I started playing it. It's probably still going to be disgustingly good in World PvP, at least against certain melee DPS that don't have a lot of healing. So it's like, and it has stealth. It feels not wise to not put it up here. Yeah, I don't know if it's better than Brewmaster, though. I haven't seen any like one-shots from it. I haven't done like a lot of testing with it, but I know that it can't die, especially when there's no dampening. So it's probably disgustingly good in World PvP still. Havoc Demon Hunter, I also think is disgustingly good. I think the self-healing, the leech healing that it has makes it really good. Rain from above, getting away from any melee. You win like most 1v1s. I'd say it's probably the only thing you're afraid of is Rogue. Rogue probably outdoes you. But I want to say that this is probably S tier. I'm putting this up here. I think that since the I-beam buffs and since the damage buffs that it got, is just, it can mow people over in World PvP. It has all the best tools to escape too. If there's cliffs, you could built-in slow fall, dash off the side, double eventual retreat to immune, get away, get out of there. Like you've got more than enough, I think. And you can play Night Elf, so you could Shadow Meld if you wanted to like ambush somebody. You Shadow Meld in a little choke point, wait for somebody to walk by and jump on top of them. Holy Priest, probably not that great. It does have damage, but it's very like cooldown oriented, and most DPS will recover through that and then run you down. And Holy Priest is just not that good in general. Holy Paladin is also probably not that great. I don't see it having enough. It's similar to Holy Priest, where these are like burst damage healers, where they get like a little window where they hit something, but if it doesn't kill the DPS, they're going to passively recover, and then eventually you're not going to be able to win those situations. So I don't think these healing specs will be that good. Marksmanship Hunter is a lot better now. Hunter defense is much higher. I kind of want to put this on S tier. I think that it actually has the potential to be S tier for World PvP. The first range DPS that we're putting up here on the S tier. I think it does a great amount of damage since the survivability buffs. I think you're durable. You can take on multiple enemies. You've got tools to get away from them as well with multiple routes. I think that Marksman Hunter could be really fun in World PvP. And also just being able to start from really far away in camouflage with like an aim shot or potentially even still sniper shot for the extra range in World PvP could be really fun. Mistweaver Monk. Now, you could play Fistweaver. I think if you play Caster, it's terrible. But if you play Fistweaver, it's definitely better than Holy Priest or Holy Paladin. So I'm going to put it on C. But I would not personally want to. It does not sound fun to do that. Outlaw Rogue. I don't think like Outlaw Rogue is strong in Solo Shuffle Arena, but I don't think it's great in BG Blitz. And usually like BG Blitz and World PvP have some overlap because it's kind of about 1v1s or 1v2s. Like how easily can you take out a flag carrier quickly? And Outlaw Rogue doesn't really have that. So for me, Outlaw Rogue is probably going to feel not that great. I kind of want to put it down here. The only thing that could be kind of cheeky about it is like the grappling hook, but I think Outlaw Rogue and World PvP is probably like a no-go zone. And I don't want to stack the classes all on one line too. I think out of all the rogue specs, you probably want to avoid Outlaw. Preservation is probably going to be up here with Disc. It can do enough damage, I think, to kill some DPS specs, while also being unkillable. It'll be more enjoyable than Holy or Priest or Holy Paladin, but again, I would not necessarily suggest doing the healer specs for this. Prot Warrior, probably the worst tank. I just don't see it having the damage that the other ones have. So for me, I mean, it's still a tank, so it's probably still unkillable. You're gonna get away with killing some specs, but I'm kind of putting it in the mid. Prot Paladin, same deal. I haven't seen it with like any sort of damage potential, but you'll still never die, so it's probably gonna still feel kind of mid in that regard, where you can just take on multiple enemies. Resto Shaman, it's probably similar to Mistweaver. Like, yeah, you might be able to get something going with the new Lava Surge being baseline, but you really probably don't. Although Thunderstorm and Static Field and knocking people off cliffs could be fun, just in Shaman in general, but it's probably not a great idea. Resto Druid, this one's S tier. Resto Druid with Heart of the Wild, Cat Form and stuff like that, you can beat a lot of DPS. It's probably one of the most disgusting World PvP specs, and there's no way that it's not better if you build it for World PvP in 1v1. It's definitely S tier. Ret Paladin, hard one. It's a very hard one. It got a Word of Glory buff change, which has increased its survivability immensely. So I find it hard to believe that it wouldn't be good. You have really good survivability in that regard. Divine Shield, obviously. Bubble Hearth, the classic World PvP escape mechanism. Nobody's got that on you. I think it's got to be probably at least A tier. But I haven't seen enough of it to where I think like Ret is taking over, like the Ret Apocalypse. I don't think we're at that point yet. Shadow Priest, also really good. Has really good survivability, really good 1v1. So for me, I think it's probably A tier. Put up here, probably the best of the A tier. Subtlety Rogue, this might be the best spec in the game for World PvP. It's just way more agile, way harder to pin down. It has really good damage right now currently, so it's probably like the ultimate World PvP spec. If you were going to go after something, I think it'd definitely be a Subtlety Rogue. Survival Hunter, really good survivability now. Finally, the name suits the spec. I don't know if I want to put it on S, but it probably is. It's probably close to it. I think it has really good 1v1. It has reset potential. You have camouflage for stealth. It's like it's either A or S. Maybe I'll put it on A for now. I could maybe see it getting like swarmed by some classes and having a harder time, but we'll leave it on A for now. Unholy DK, this is a hard one. Survivability is the same as Frost, but your pressure's higher. So I think it's probably like an easy A. It's better than Frost. I don't know if I want to say that it's S tier. Well, maybe it could be, but I think Blood would be an easier time than Unholy. Vengeance Demon Hunter, Again, I haven't seen a lot of damage from this class. I know that it has a lot of CC and a lot of mobility, and it can't die. So those are automatically going to be putting it in a really good spot. But I don't know how much damage it has. So like I'm gonna put it on A tier for now, but this could be S. I'm not 100% certain with this one. Windwalker Monk, really good like all-in potential. Just dogpile somebody with all your defensives, and you're gonna bulldoze almost anything in the game that doesn't have an immunity. It's like a mage or a ret. Mobility can be rough though. They did change your Storm Earth and Fire a bit. Trying to think if there's anything like, I would love to see like a crackle build. Honestly, crackling lightning could be really memey in world PvP, where you like knock people off edges and stuff. And remember, we're flying like underground, but they're still really high cliffs. So, you know, knockbacks are definitely something to take in consideration for like memeability. You have really good 1v1. I think it would be surprising that this isn't like A tier or S tier. So we'll put it on A tier for now. And finally, augmentation. You probably want to avoid this over devastation. Has really good survivability. It's like a tank spec, so it'll probably feel like kind of mid. We'll put it here. It'll probably feel kind of mid just because its survivability is likely going to be really high. But I think it's actually its damage output is good. I'm gonna unless something changes with tuning, I think Aug is actually A. I think that it's actually A. So here's my thoughts on the tier list. Again, if you've skipped to the end or something like that, make sure you watch the commentary around each spec to understand why I've placed it where I've placed it. This is again based off of my experiences of playtesting on the beta, observing duels and 1v1s, and my expectations based on historical data of how world PvP has played out and what has made specialization strong. And the main purpose of this tier list is so you can like maybe plan out what spec you're going to level with in the world in order to have the best experience possible, because the world is basically all of the content for the first 2 weeks. So I definitely want to make sure that I'm making a decision that's going to be really enjoyable for me and be able to create some awesome moments. But other than that, thank you very much for watching the video. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one.